Today I'm going to be comparing this Apple iPad Air, and this is the 5th generation, versus this Doogee tablet. Now, the first big difference you're going to notice when you're comparing these two tablets is that this Apple iPad Air is going to be a larger tablet than this Doogee is. So that is just something in general to keep in mind. This one from Doogee is going to be a bit on the smaller size when compared to the iPad Air. Now, not a ton, because actually this part of the case is just the case itself on this iPad Air. So this screen is going to be a bit bigger, but not by a large amount. Another thing to consider when doing this is going to be an Android tablet versus an Apple tablet. So personally, here at our home, we do prefer Apple just because I like the security that it offers by not being able to download apps that aren't, specific to their app store, and it helps protect you from different sorts of things that your tablet or computer might get. So I do prefer that closed ecosystem that Apple has. However, many people prefer the Android. Now, in regards to the tablets themselves, the Doogee has some weird quirks to it. So a couple of things about it. First of all, is that you can actually not put these into folders once you move them up here. At least I can't figure out how to do it. Once you have these up here, like you can't take one of these and like move it into another one. It actually so then it does that, but then you can see it's still there on the bottom. So that's kind of odd to me that you can now have it twice on the same thing, and this just seems really odd that it actually does that here on the Doogee. And it's just something with probably the Android system or with their system. I'm not sure which. Whereas, of course, with Apple, you just want to put something in a folder. You can just take it, drag it to something else, and then it's going to move the next thing up. Kind of makes sense. What I was trying to do is I was trying to create a folder on the Doogee for all this random stuff that it comes with. And with I couldn't really figure out how to do it. Like I added it to the folders, but then it was still going to be in these different things all the way down here. So like I didn't want it all available. I wanted it to have different folders. Whereas the way that it's set up, it just didn't work like that. And again, just a little quirk there. One other thing I really did not like about this Doogee, and again, I believe it's an Android thing, is that it comes with a ton of preloaded apps that you actually cannot uninstall. So there's no way to uninstall many of these different apps. The only thing you can actually do with it is if you go to the settings, then you can go to, let's see, it's the apps on here. And then, so for example, I can go to, let's go to all apps. And let's say, for example, I want to uninstall something that it came with. Let's just go with Gmail, for example. Okay. So you can actually only disable Gmail, but it stays on your device itself. So even though it is disabled, okay, so it's not going to show on the front end, it's still going to be using storage. So that I believe, again, that's something with an Android operating system versus Apple. There's many apps that it's going to come standard with on the Apple iPad Air, but you can still go through and delete them all if you wish. So, for example, this podcast app, I can remove the app on Apple and then I can re-download it from the App Store if I want it. So, not a huge fan of that. And again, I believe that's something with the Android operating system versus the Apple one. But I do like the iPad Air in that regard. Both of these are going to be really bright. This Doogee does have like adaptive brightness, so they're going to have a different screen brightness. The Doogee is an incredibly clear and crisp screen, as is this one from Apple. So overall, just the big difference for me is the differences between the operating systems that these run on them. So whether it's the Android on the Doogee or the Apple, of course, on the Apple iPad Air. I personally prefer the Apple just because I feel like it gives you some of those things that maybe aren't, just to make it a little bit easier to use in those regards, like moving things around, deleting things that I don't actively want here on the iPad. I can do all of that, whereas with the Doogee, I can just hide it, but it's still going to take up some memory. So that is a downside. Overall, both of them do have excellent stats. They run extremely fast. I was really happy with how fast this Doogee tablet ran. And of course, the iPad Air runs quick as well. So overall, both are good options. The Doogee is definitely more of a value option than the iPad Air is, so that is something to keep in mind. But it does have those few little quirks that you might not be a fan of, so also something to consider.